Welcome to the Not On My Watch podcast, where real-life issues facing the family and the church are addressed with bold and uncompromising truth. It's time to reject the mediocrity of the day, live courageously in the face of danger, and declare, Not On My Watch. Here are your hosts, Jeff and Rochelle Ferguson.
Hey, welcome to the Not On My Watch podcast. We are Jeff and Rochelle, your hosts, and really excited to continue our series on things that we do not regret.
Things we do not regret. In this one hits close to home. We're passionate about all of these. But today in this episode, we're talking about one thing we have never regretted was shepherding the hearts of our children when they were surrounded by wolves. Shepherding the hearts of our children when they were surrounded by wolves. And so it's like, okay, whoa, this is heavy. We just jumped into that real fast.
Welcome to a really light podcast. I think right there, some people go, really? Like, really? Yeah, I think this is why God gives us parents.
Yes.
This is why this is a God-ordained role. Mm-hmm. If you are a parent, if you one day will be a parent, you are mandated, even especially when your children are within your home, to help shepherd their hearts and shepherd their souls. I would even tell you, even after they leave your home, I think they're for life. You are there to shepherd, to help protect. And part of shepherding is not just leading through or, hey, this is the way to go, or, hey, follow me as I follow Christ. Those are all parts of shepherding. But one part of shepherding that I don't have a problem talking about it, but I think sometimes we don't like to talk about it because it feels icky, but it's that you've got to protect your kids from the wolves.
Yeah, and the bottom line is we talk to parents a lot who are in the throes of dealing with this because we're living in a world where there are wolves that exist. And I understand Ephesians, Paul says our war is not against flesh and blood, but against the powers and the principalities. That is true. The enemy uses flesh and blood people to wage war against people, and namely your children.
Yeah,
and so
absolutely.
There are people with real names, with real faces that literally that want to prey upon your children, that want to attack your children. And we as parents, like you said, and a lot of parents listening, you understand this because you're thinking, I am in the midst of a world right now that's kind of descending into chaos. What do I do? How do I deal with this?
I think if you as a parent are going, that's so far-fetched, there's nobody that's out there to get my kids, I'd say, you need to take a good look at what's going on in the world. I think there's another pendulum that you can swing to that everybody's out to get your kids.
Yes.
That's not true. That is not true. Not everybody is a wolf. But that's just good. Because not everybody is a wolf doesn't mean wolves don't exist.
Yes.
And so this is why it takes discernment, and we're going to literally talk about what does a wolf look like? How do we know? But your kids need you.
Oh my!
Your kids need you. They are not ready, prepared. This is why we're given the gift of parents, is because we're not prepared to take those on. And I think parents are falling asleep on the job.
Yes.
Parents are thinking, my kid will figure it out. I figured it out. Really? Like, really? No, we're called to go higher. So let's really define what a wolf is. So we're not like, everybody's out to get my little baby.
They're out there. You just can't identify them.
No, I mean, anybody who's calling your child to calling them higher, maybe even confronting them. I think about teachers or coaches. Not all of them are wolves.
Right.
They're wanting people who want the best for your children. They are not a wolf.
Even if they may hurt your child's feelings as they're calling them higher, that's good.
I think, and you've got to have discernment in this and be really going to the Lord and asking, okay, what am I dealing with here? But a couple of characteristics of a wolf is one, they want to do harm to your child. If we don't realize that there are people who want to do harm to children, then we're going to lead children to be very vulnerable. I mean, Scripture talks about this, especially.
Yes.
I think about this. Just the very nature of the roles that Jeff and I have served in the last 20 years, we haven't been afforded the opportunity to be ignorant or naive to this.
No, that's a good
And
way
so
to put
if
it.
you have had that opportunity, in some ways, I find myself envying you a little bit. Not really. I want to live in the light. I don't want to live in denial. But there are people who want to do harm to children.
I mean, all you need to do is just read some of the news that's hitting. Look at the media that's out there. Things that are preying upon kids. They want to do harm to your children. You know, we know of the trafficking industry that's worldwide. People literally want to do harm to children. I can't understand it. I'll never will. But I will say, if we don't acknowledge this, what we're going to do is we could be walking around wolves and pretending like they're actual shepherds.
Yeah.
So we can't do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Another sign, okay, somebody that wants to do harm to a child, somebody who wants to teach incorrect theology to children. And you might go, really?
Yeah.
Like, really? No, I actually think it's really, really key. If there's somebody that wants to teach your children that really, you don't matter to the Lord. You know.
That's a huge thing.
Or that, you know, hey, there's no such thing as, well, I don't know, sin. There's no need for a savior. That's scary.
Hell is not a real place. We're kind of experiencing it now on this earth.
But one day we'll all be saved. Things like that is like, that's scary because that is shaping your child's worldview.
Oh, yeah.
That can end up leading to death.
And everything begins and ends with worldview.
Absolutely.
That's why we talk about it so often. I think a third identifying characteristic of a wolf is a person who finds it their job to diminish or discourage your child. Okay. We're not talking about someone who's challenging them and calling them higher, because that could feel bad. We're talking about someone who consistently finds it their job to diminish, to knock your child down a couple notches, to consistently discourage them. This is an indicator of somebody who could be a wolf in your child's life.
Yes. Okay,
So-
now even we talk about how, you know, we didn't regret shepherding our children, shepherding them even in the midst of wolves. I don't know. I mean, we talked about these characteristics, but I feel still like I need to address this thing that, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you're not even thinking this, but of people who may be listening to this podcast saying, this is extreme.
Because there may be some who say, I don't know, there's really not wolves out there.
I want to address this because it's so important. I understand that we can live in a culture that wants to be alarmist. Like, oh, this is happening, therefore the sky is falling, sell off all your stocks. You know, okay.
Buy gold.
Yeah. This can definitely, and I understand that we can fall prey to that. We can absolutely fall prey to that. But I find myself being more concerned with the group of people who say, it's all going to work out. Don't worry about the details. Don't be alarmed. I made it through and I'm serving Jesus. My kids will make it through. We all had to go through all of this. If we find ourselves saying that, I think we don't understand that the times are getting more and more evil.
Yes.
We don't understand, and we're not looking at what is happening, that there is a concerted effort to shape the minds of the next generation, and to shape not only their minds, but to shape all their thinking, to distort their view of God, to distort their view of the church, to distort their view as a need for a savior.
Yes.
And so if we think that everything is the same as when we grew up, or maybe we even, I mean, I really believe this, people make false narratives about how they grew up, and they don't realize that, and they don't think about, we're not thinking deeply about the fact that we would have never made it if it hadn't been for the Lord. So there's a whole generation that needs to know the Lord, and yet there's a concerted effort more than ever before to block people from knowing Jesus. in our culture. I'm just saying in our modern day culture.
Well, and there's a specific target on the next generation. Why? Because the next generation, God's doing something in this next generation, and the enemy understands that if he can get to the next generation, that biblical worldview can keep going down, 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 and suddenly we have a world without any kind of semblance of what the Bible even says. That's what he's trying to do.
Right.
And I think some people would like to fall into this false dilemma. There's something called a false dilemma that says, like you said, well, there's so many alarmists out there that say the sky is falling, that we don't, these things that you're saying we need to pay attention to, we just shouldn't pay attention because they're probably not as bad as what you're saying. And I would say that's a false dilemma, because there are real people, a real intent to prey on the next generation, and we can't just blindly just gloss over that because some people over here are on the extreme.
Yes.
Yeah, we acknowledge that. But what we're talking about is not extreme. What we're talking about is we've talked to parents who no longer have a relationship with their kids because someone has taught their kids false theology.
Oh yeah,
we have these discussions a lot, and my question often is when
kids who were literally abused right under their own parents' protection because we didn't want to recognize some of these warning signs.
And the response is always, I never saw it coming. I didn't see it coming. And we're not here to guilt trip.
No, not at all.
Our effort, though, is to say, hey, there are some real things that we just need to be discerning and aware of so that our children are not prey to the wolves out there.
And, I want to say this too in what we're talking about. What is a wolf actually? They want to do harm. They want to diminish. They want to teach your kids wrong theology. The thing that is a problem is when we think of wolf, we always think, well, we'll know them by how they are. And yet this is a deceptive type of role. Somebody's not coming out going, I'm a wolf.
I want to destroy your children.
I'm wanting to do this. This is something that's done under the cover of, hey, I want what's best.
Yes.
Let me pour into your child. Things such as that.
Well, and I want to hit on something before we head into how do we shepherd, and you hit on it a little bit. The reason why we don't, he's like, why would anybody regret this? Well, here's the thing. If you truly shepherd your children, you will be called extreme. You might be called crazy. Well, you're just making up things. You're judgmental. You will be called judgmental. And so, you know what? I am willing to be called all those things. I don't regret it. Even though maybe I'm mischaracterized or someone calls me judgmental, you know what? That's fine. To me, shepherding the soul and the heart of my kids is more important than
Absolutely. And Scripture's replete with leaders and parents who did shepherd their children and those who didn't.
Yes.
And we could go through a whole lot of unfortunately people even heroes of what we would consider heroes of the Bible who failed to shepherd for the next generation, and there were consequences for years, decades to come. And we don't speak to this just from some theoretical standpoint. This is something that Jeff and I have literally had to walk through and even continue at times to walk through, of protecting our children from those who seek to be harmed. So a couple of things how do you do this? Okay, all right, I want to do this. Okay, I've got some warning signs. How do I protect my kids? How do I do this? I think number one is that your home has to be a safe haven for them to be able to share their concerns about other adults.
Oh, this is
this is something that we have literally had to walk through in multiple circumstances. There will be our kids will share with us. Maybe it's I don't know, time driving down the road. Sometimes it's bedtime. Sometimes it's at dinner. Sometimes it's at the most random of places. They'll say things like, and it changes as your kids age as far as their vocabulary. But they'll say things like, this person makes me feel uncomfortable when they ask me questions. Or I feel that this person is trying to shape how I think about other people. And I'm thinking, oh, that's a control. Okay, gotcha. These are the type of things that literally we have had our own personal children come and say to us. I think one of the biggest dangers is, oh, no, that's Bobby Sue. She's been the Sunday school teacher for 20 years. Why would you say that about her? I know she's golden. Don't say that. You're thinking wrong.
And that's powerful, because our home needs to be a safe place. When we do that, we could be unintentionally victimizing our kids in that moment.
Yeah.
Unintentionally.
I think that this is a huge thing.
Yes.
If your kids ever feel uncomfortable,
yes.
if they ever have a cause for alarm, they should feel and be able to have the comfortability, the vulnerability to be able to share that with you as the parents. You
Yes.
are their safe people. You should be their safe people. That doesn't mean that all of their concerns are always right on target. That does not mean that. That doesn't mean that maybe there aren't other things that you as the parent need to investigate to see, was my child's feelings hurt, or is this valid? We'll get to that place in what we're talking about today, but if you shut down them sharing with that, you will shut down the opportunity for them to share the things that need to be shared with you at various moments.
And that's the hard part about shepherding, because natural inclination wants to say, oh, they're fine. They're great people. I've known them my whole life, or whatever. And trying to discern, is this a legitimate concern? Is my child tired or whatever? Trying to navigate that. That's the hard part of shepherding. But one thing that you said that we have to come back to is our home has to be a safe place for the discussion to happen.
Right. And so if our first initial response is, well, I've never witnessed that. You just shut down and you became not a safe place to share.
Yes.
So just because you haven't witnessed something doesn't mean that it's not true. I think people, there's a lot of us that when we hear ourselves talking about this, they're like, ooh, but what if I entertain something that's not true? I didn't say act on everything your child said.
Oh, that's good.
Did say listen. Mm-hmm. You as a parent have to have discernment to listen. Rarely do we need to act like that. Now, there are moments, and there are things that if they are shared with you, you must act quickly. You must act immediately.
Yes.
But you as a parent are going to have the wisdom and the discernment to know what level you are talking about, and also who your child is. But there's got to be a safe place. Your home has got to be a safe place. The relationship has got to be a safe place where, I've had my kids say this. I don't feel like so-and-so really likes me. And I say, okay, hold on. Let's talk about this. Why? Why would you say that? Give me an example.
Yeah.
Give me an example.
And you're better at this than I am, doing that.
And I'm like, okay, let's walk through that. Okay, well, they said this way. Okay, well, tell me about the circumstances. Hey, if it's in a situation that's, they just don't like me, I think, you know what, how about we do this? Let's pray about this for a couple weeks. Let's see how the relationship goes. Let's do that. Now, that's different than, I feel uncomfortable because this person, made me feel uncomfortable and they wanted to talk to me alone after, whatever. Well, hold on. Okay, give me details.
That's
these are different levels. So, but your home has to be a safe place where people can share what's going on.
I think one way we can be at ease as parents is, I think at this stage, you don't always have to act on it right then. What we're saying is just be a safe place for conversation.
Yes.
So that they can know they can come to you.
And this really goes to number 2, which says, don't dismiss their concerns, listen and help them through it.
Yeah.
And we really kind of even got ahead of ourselves here sharing that. But if we immediately say that didn't happen, if we immediately say, I think you're wrong, you shut down all modes of communication. This is called emotional maturity.
Yes.
All of us find ourselves, even as adults, going, wow, I wonder if that person meant to say it that way. Let me have some emotional maturity, have some emotional health where I can sit here and go, I wonder, you know what? That person's been under a lot of stress lately. I realized they recently moved and started a new job. You know what? Let me have a little grace here. I don't even need to approach them about this. I'm going to sit there and you are helping your kids become emotionally mature when they're able to talk these things out instead of just being offended and going, I don't like that person. They're mean.
Yeah. And let me throw some family systems theory in it. Remain curious about the situation. To do what you said, ask questions. Why do you feel that way? Tell me about it. Don't jump to conclusions. Well, that could never happen because this is my experience. Remain curious, because when you remain curious, you're going to learn something about maybe the person. You're going to learn about your child. You're going to learn more in the process. I think that's powerful.
And this is part of growing your child up. It's part of helping them to understand how to have adult conversations, adult interactions. And so if we think everybody has our kids' best interest, that nobody's there to harm them, we won't listen to these kind of things. We will dismiss them. I want to hit number 3 here carefully.
Yeah. Because it's important, but I agree.
Because not all situations will require this. And I want to say that again. Not all situations will require this, but some will. Okay? So not all, but some will. And the circumstances might be such that you will have to, and it will warrant you removing your child from the situation. I find myself at a tension here because I personally have a value of growing my kids up.
Yeah.
I have a value in and of myself that I will have grit, right? That I will produce grit within my children, that we won't give up at the first sign of trouble, that we won't bail at the first sign of something not being fun, or maybe we won't, quit a team because we're not the number one player. Literally, that's like a trigger point for me.
Oh, that's a value of our family.
Yes.
We've had a lot of those discussions. Just because you want to not do this doesn't mean we're going to.
Like if we signed up for it, I'm kind of like, yeah, we're going to finish it. That doesn't mean you have to do it for life, but we're going to finish what we started.
Yes.
But there are situations where that advice, that characteristic of grit actually becomes harmful. And this is where a wisdom comes in. You say, where does wisdom come from? The fear of the Lord. You've got to go ask the Lord. How do you know when that is? I don't know all of the answers. In fact, sometimes I feel like I've gotten it wrong. Sometimes I'm like, you know what? I made my kids stay in too long. And it wasn't good. It wasn't good for them. But I do have a few words of wisdom from sometimes when I've done it right. And one of them that I notice is when I see this affecting my kids' joy, and I didn't say happiness, but I said joy. And really, I could do this even with myself. When I find that it's affecting my own joy and not just happiness, I'm talking about a deeper level. I think there needs to be an evaluation of, is it time to remove myself from a situation because the danger is too great?
No, that's good. I think when it's impacting that, I think another thing to do when you're thinking, what actions do we need to take? I think when appropriate, have discussions with the proper people, asking clarifying questions. This happened. I have this concern. In through those, I don't know who those are with. Maybe they're with a pastor. Maybe they're with a church leader. Maybe they're with a teacher or school administrator or whatever. Through those, hopefully you're going to gain the wisdom as you're prayerfully having these conversations, gaining the wisdom to say, okay, let me make an informed decision. What you're talking about here is not a decision you make overnight. It's not a decision you make in a couple minutes. It's a decision that you really prayerfully make together with your spouse, and then probably asking some clarifying questions to make sure that we understand the situation at hand.
And I agree with you, Jeff, except for when the leader themselves is the wolf. Okay. And so
that would throw a wrench into it. Absolutely.
I agree with you. Yes. As a normal rule of thumb, I agree with what you say, except for when you have the person in authority who's actually wanting to do the harm. And so a couple of ways that my kids have faced this. I'm not going to say which kids or how, whatever, but there have been times where one of my children will say, I feel uncomfortable. I feel like this person is trying to get information out of me that makes me feel uncomfortable. Unfortunately, working in the local church, there were adults who would try to manipulate to find out information from my children. Now, that's a form of abuse.
Yes.
That is a form of abuse. And so that would come home. I feel this way, or I feel that this person, one of my children said, one of my teachers said that this finger is a bad finger and I should never use it. Well, it's a bad finger when you're flipping somebody off, but God didn't make any bad fingers,
Right.
And so,
oh man,
I know that sounds silly, but it was just this constant
barrage,
critique.
Yeah.
And so, a step of action was, we said, okay, we're going to send one of us in.
Yes.
We're going to attend with this and see what we see. We're not going to say, hey kid, good luck. We're going to be a part of this. And unfortunately, at times, sometimes people act differently around adults, but sometimes we would even see some of this. And so what it is there are times where you say, yeah, this is not healthy for you to be in. I'm going to remove you from this situation. I am 100% in a proponent of our kids gritting it out, learning how to stick things out, learning how to be people that don't quit. But sometimes being in something is more dangerous than the quitting of it.
Because we're talking about the soul, the heart of our kids. Jesus said, woe to those who cause my little ones to stumble. It's better for a millstone to be hung around their neck. Jesus did not mince words when he spoke about this. He said, hey, it's okay, let's talk this out. He said it's better for them to have a millstone hung around their neck and be thrown into the sea. Jesus takes this seriously. We should take this seriously, and we don't take it seriously to our own peril. We do. If we don't take it, if we gloss over it at the sake of unity and feeling good and niceness, we will put the next generation at risk.
Yes.
Because I agree with you. We want to teach resilience and stick-to-itness and all that stuff. I don't even know if that's a word, to our kids. But we have to be discerning. When does it cross the line into what you said, abuse? When their joy is just being still. Because you know what? Whether it's the local church or whatever, overall, it should be life-giving, not life-stealing.
I honestly, you share that verse, and I always thought, nobody in their right mind would not want to protect children from predators. Like, the idea that would even be something, honestly, I would not even be able to fathom. And unfortunately, I've been shown that it is more common than what I thought, that people want to protect relationship with one another, or they want to protect a feeling of unity or a feeling of, oh, let's not rock the boat, instead of actually protecting children. And I think this as a parent, if you think that it's going to be easy to protect your children and you're never going to have to rock the boat and everybody's going to be happy all the time, I feel that your parenting might need to be challenged. Your parenting idea might need to be challenged, because anytime you're going to stick up for the vulnerable, your children are vulnerable.
Yes.
Anytime you're going to be a voice for the voiceless.
Yep.
I mean, and we can talk about this in a lot of different ways. Anytime you're going to do that, anytime you're going to advocate for those who can't advocate for themselves, you will receive pushback.
Oh, you will. 100%.
You will. It will not be an easy road. But Jesus didn't give us the option to be silent.
No.
He didn't. I mean, we want this artificial harmony, and yet there's no real protection. And we sit there and we go, why are all these kids walking away from the faith? Because they're seeing people who aren't standing up for truth.
And they're being hurt, and they're not having advocates to stand with them and say, I'm going to fight for you. I'm going to fight for your soul.
Even when people push back.
Because unity at the expense of truth, can I just say, is evil? Unity at the expense of truth is all out evil. If we're trying to we gotta stay together, but there's abuse happening, there's untrue things being spoken, that is not an environment that our kids should be in.
And so your kids need you to be the shepherd.
Yes.
And I love how Jesus tells us that he's the good shepherd. He's the good shepherd. And if we really understood that, we would know that he is fighting for us.
Yes, he is.
He's fighting for us. He's protecting us from dangers that we can't even see.
That's good.
And I think that as a parent, If you are a mom and dad, you're not your child's good shepherd, but you are their shepherd.
Yes.
And you are fighting things that they can't even see. And you know what? It gets bloody at times and it gets wounded, but I'm telling you, the prize is worth it.
It's so
and
worth
Jesus
it.
tells us that we were worth it for him.
It's so worth it.
And what he
Yes.
went through, unimaginable. Yet he continues to offer his rod and his staff. What they comfort, they protect. I don't know if we know what the rod and the staff are used for. They're used to beat off the wolves, right?
Yes.
Like that's what they're really used for. And so, you know what? I hope this is encouraging.
Yes.
And that you might go, you know what? I just need to be encouraged
Yep.
in that. Or, wow, this helps me even process some situations that
This
you
is
might
a call
find yourself in.
as we end today. This is a call for moms, dads, grandparents, church leaders to get in there and get bloody for the next generation, to protect the next generation, your children from the wolves. Hey, let's do it. You can do it. God created you for this, but we need to be bold.
Yep.
We need to be courageous. So, hey, go ahead and share this. Share it out, like it, rate and review on Apple Podcast. And we'll see you right here on the next episode of the Not On My Watch podcast. We'll see you then.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Not On My Watch podcast. You are a watchman for this time and hour. Don't forget to subscribe and rate this podcast wherever you listen. If you haven't already, head on over to our website, www.notonmywatch.co, for more resources from Jeff and Rochelle. Thank you for joining us. We will see you next time on the next episode. But until then, keep watchful.